guiding light is all I know. Through wood and steel, through fire and lace, I'm blessed to walk within your grace. Is to a throig arcane. You laid the path before me. You guided every step. Raise the hammer, string the bow. Her gift is all I need to know. Through toil and trial, through heart and hand, her grace builds up this mighty land. Is the grass the dead time it's sore? We'll build the land, our hearts within. From dawn till dusk, I work, I strive. With your blessing, I'll survive. The loom, the forge, the sword, the grain in your name, I rise again. Got buat, got tolan, got trio. In you lies strength, in you lies skill. Each victory, each talent, each trial. No task too great, no skill too small. Your gifts, dear goddess, guide us all. Into force. Without your light, we have no guide, but with your hand, our place abides. Raise the hammer, string the bow. Her gift is all I need to know. Through toil and trial, through heart and hand, her grace builds up this mighty land. Is the grass the dead time it's sore? To find it until our greatest day. By the grace of the goddess we are free. We'll build the land, our hearts within. I'm blessed to walk within your grace. Blessed by her grace, forever, forever.
Hello, and welcome back to Pax Dei, the Search for Steel, where I'm trying to get the audio right, and I think I have, so let me know in the comments. Let's see what happens. Anyway, today is episode 125, and we're going to take a laid-back journey into one of the most powerful tools in both gaming and life, which is critical thinking. I think for a majority of the time that we have within the year of this podcast, I want to ensure that we go over this more than once. And why do I say that? More than once a year. And approaching it in different styles and aspects. Because, put simply, this type of subject benefits us all to a great degree. And as you can see, I'm picking up some stuff that was overflow. Crap. It's still overflow. Yeah. All right, but critical thinking is such an important skill in our lives, whether that's gaming or in real life, IRL, right? We always look to the well, how should I say it? we're supposed to be taught this in college, right? And we are for the most part. But more importantly, we're supposed to be taught this in school. And we've gone over education. Education is not fulfilling its duty, in my opinion. Meaning, critical thinking should be one of the first skills taught, because everything thereafter is going to be based on whether or not your critical thinking skills provide the necessary mechanisms for you to accept what you're being taught, right? And it's very important to our society as a whole, right? We've gone over society as well here, you know, on this channel, where it's gonna look weird, but it works. We're going game slash. So just grab. It's a night show, so don't grab your coffee. You don't need coffee. You don't need caffeine. But if you're into it, grab a coffee, or heck, if you have a health potion, let's do that. Get comfy, because we're going to explore why thinking critically is basically the real world equivalent of finding like a rare steel ingot in Pax Dei. So, in fact, we'll even rope in some ancient wisdom again, because this channel is based off of ancient wisdom. And we're going to take a classic tale from Plato. We've been talking about it all weekend, but I want to really focus on this because it begins the journey down thought and why it's so important. So Plato will help illuminate our path tonight. It's about the allegory of the cave. Some of you may have heard of it this weekend. Some may have heard about it in philosophy class. Why it's in philosophy class is beyond me. It should be in English or critical thinking. There should be a whole course on critical thinking, and this should be included in there. Don't worry, we'll keep it casual, and I'll try to keep it story-driven, as I always do. So picture this. You're a character in an MMO. Let's say Pax Dei. Let's say Empire. Now, you can't be Empire, I'm Empire. Anyway, my point is, start out in this cozy little village. Now, for months, all you've known is what's inside the village. The local NPC gossip, the beginner quests, the same wooden sword and ragged armor. It's relatively safe. It's familiar. It's comfortable. But one day, you hear a rumor. Somewhere out there in the wilds is steel. A metal stronger than anything you've seen, or anything you're capable of working with to date. With steel, you can forge weapons and tools of legendary quality. When you find the recipes, of course. But how do you find those recipes? That's another question. So, no one in the village has actually seen steel, or there's very few players who can actually show you the steel. And if you ask them, they probably, or they might tell you where the steel is, honestly. But to date, you're not exactly sure where that steel is, right? I think that's in a no. Yeah, that's plot I can't do. What is that in there? It did something. Sorry, I got sidetracked here with the game stuff. This is what happens when you're redoing everything from scratch. Flip it. There we go. And then we'll bring it down. It's not exactly where I want it to. I want it right there. There we go. And it's a little higher. Never noticed that before. These are kind of new toys. The curved arches. Anyway. So some folks in the area, they might not know about steel. They might even say, whatever, I got copper. I got tin. I got bronze. I don't need steel. I don't even need iron. You, however, get curious and start wondering, where might this steel be? What if the tales are true? What would it take to find it? What would it take to mine it? What would it take to find and mine it? What creatures are going to be guarding it? All different things, or all these different questions. This little daydream parallels the ancient story told by the Greek philosopher Plato. In his Allegory of the Cave, a group of people lived chained in a cave from birth, facing a blank wall. All they have ever seen projected on the wall are shadows of objects that pass in front of the fire behind them. These shadows are all they know. They can't look behind them. They're only looking at this wall, right? To them, the shadows are reality. Imagine that. One prisoner gets freed and stumbles outside the cave into the sunlight. At first, he's blinded. It's overwhelming. But his eyes adjust eventually, and he sees the real world for the first time. He sees all the vivid color, all the real objects in the sun itself, and even the sun itself. He realizes those shadows in the cave were just a poor imitation of the real thing. Excited, he runs back in to tell the others. But the others think he's crazy. They like their shadows. They might even get angry at him for challenging their reality. Sound familiar by any chance? Yep. See if we can do a couple of these. Boom. So now we're not here for the philosophy lecture, but we're here. But the ancient tale has a huge relevance to everyday life, right? And even to our games. Think of the cave as any situation where people accept illusions for truth. In Plato's story, the cave prisoners who cling to the shadows remind me of gamers who refuse to leave the noob zone because it's all they know, or people IRL who get all their news from one biased source and never question it. In both cases, there's a whole richer reality there, but it takes curiosity and the courage to step out to discover it. Man, I'm gonna have to. Looks like I'm gonna have to do the. I need to find wood beams. All right, well. Let's go get some fine wood beams. Have some. There is a point in this game where you can actually be a profession, where your master profession and you just stay in the noob area, or the home valley is what they call these, and you just work for a living and you interact with players. It's pretty cool. A lot of role-playing opportunities with this game. So in both cases, there's a whole richer reality out there. It takes curiosity and courage to step out to discover it, right? The sunlight in Plato's Allegory is like the first time when you venture beyond the familiar. Maybe stepping into a high-level zone in World of Warcraft, or trying to complete a new strategy in EVE Online. It's harsh at first, but you might get your butt kicked or even feel totally lost. But ultimately, you gain a truer understanding of the world. No more room. Let's see. I am missing my cursor. There it is. Alright, so what am I looking for? Probably get rid of these normal wooden beams for now. Let's get rid of these because I have like almost 100 of those. I need more fine wooden beams than anything. Okay. And once you see the broader reality, you can't unsee it. Suddenly those old shadows, quote unquote, whether they're misconceptions you had or rumors you believed, just don't cut it anymore. For example, one of the pails, I think it's called the Pale. I went up there and I'm like, man, it's foggy. It's very there's creatures in there that I could not handle at the level I was. Scary at first, very scary. But what happened was the more I went into it, and I died, a few times, right? But in Pax Dei, you just go to your Stella, and you might be able to pick up your equipment again that you took with you. Or you might not, and that's part of the learning, right? However, I got more and more adept at navigating the Pale. And everything became more and more, I associated more and more to normality. So and that happens, in whichever area that I'm traveling, whether that is the old forest. I call it the old forest. It's called ancient forest, or is it the old? I can't remember. But anyway, it's a forest where it's really high level. So critical thinking is basically our real life method of stepping out of the cave. It's the mental equivalent of going on a quest for steel, challenging what we've been told, seeking better evidence, and not settling for the shadows when we could have the real deal. It's something humans hear, something humans have valued for millennia. Socrates, which is Plato's teacher, right, was so passionate about questioning everything that he cornered people in Athens and peppered them with questions to expose fuzzy thinking. The classic Socratic method at work. He's the same guy who famously said, quote, "The unexamined life is not worth living," unquote. Implying that if we didn't reflect on what we think and why we think it, we're missing the point of being alive. Harsh? Maybe. But think about it. Without questioning, we'd all still be in our personal caves, believing whatever shadows are dancing on the wall in front of us. Let's see. Gonna go there. Sorry, I'm doing the game and I'm trying to talk about the subject at the same time. Oop, wrong area. I could probably take that out. And there's this thing right here. Man, it's not going to be the plot, huh? Do I? Yeah, fine wood beam. Okay. It'll look weird, but I gotta work around that developer error. Oh, I took actual 7 hit points of damage from that. I call them hit points, they're not really hit points. Fine wood beams are the staple of advanced crafting. Okay. So on this podcast, we love blending those big ideas with gaming and storytelling. So today we'll roam through the ancient Greece, medieval fantasy worlds, and modern science labs, maybe even a starship or two from EVE Online, to see the critical thinking in action. We'll draw wisdom from not only the Greeks, but also the Chinese, Indian, Middle Eastern, and indigenous traditions. Kind of like a global party of mentors helping us level up our mind. And of course, I'll share some relatable real-life examples and game analogies, because that's what an episode of Search for Steel without a bit of MMO lore. What is it? Anyway, by the end of our journey, you'll have a deeper appreciation, hopefully, for why critical thinking matters so much. Why it's hidden steel and strength, why it's the hidden steel that strengthens your mind. Kind of using that, threading that through the episode, Search for Steel. I know, it's kind of cheesy, but I wrote it, so might as well read it. Anyway, if you have any comments, put them in the comment section. You also pick up some practical tips on how to develop critical thinking. Consider them skill upgrades. And we'll see how to apply those skills in various realms, from everyday life choices to teamwork, in games, from deciphering news in our digital age to solving problems at work or school. We're essentially forging a richer, sharper sword for your intellect. One that can cut through the deception and the nonsense with ease. Hopefully. While playing a game, having to navigate this house. God, it's so... Yeah, I built it, and it's so complex. But it looks nice. Come on now. See that? Freaking plot. I swear to God. Alright, let's do this. Let's see if I can, It'll be fine like that. I still don't like that. Maybe I can... There we go. Maybe I'll make it rounded and make it look halfway decent. Oh. Maybe look halfway decent. Ah! There we go. And it'll look okay, I suppose. Not loving it. But I should... Darn it, I'm gonna have to do the same thing over here, aren't I? This is advanced construction 101, I suppose. How in the heck did I do that? I didn't. I kind of went across the I went here, here. Nah, that looks like crap. We'll just make it look a little weird. I don't like it, but you know what? All that to make it look a little bit better when It's not centered. That's all right. I'm gonna have to lose the OCD, huh? So you'll also pick up some practical tips on how to develop critical thinking. So keep that in mind. I want to say that twice. And see how these apply, to how to apply the skills in various realms, right? And don't worry, this isn't going to be a dry seminar. Think of it as Think of it as a story time. We'll talk about wise sages, clever tricksters from around the world, legendary gamers who use their wits to triumph, and maybe even sometimes when I'm not thinking critically, led to epic fails. Ever heard of someone in WoW paying 100 gold for a supposed rare item, then it turned out to be vendor trash? Anyway, it happens when you don't question things. All of that should be in a conversational tone, as if we're just chatting on a lazy Sunday afternoon. All right, let's get started. Let's step out of the cave and into the light. Why is critical thinking such a big deal anyway? Why bother with this search for steel when ignorance can feel blissful and easy? Well, in the next section, we'll dive into why critical thinking matters for gamers, for citizens, for humans in general. Spoiler, it's basically the key not to getting duped by illusions or scammers or manipulative game mechanics, and to living a more empowered life. So if you're ready, let's go. So why critical thinking matters? Other than figuring out what this part of my house is going to do, let's go and some of this away. And as I'm doing why critical thinking matters, we will go ahead and I need to go get some more wood. It's a perpetual thing. Always needed. I'll put this here, even though this is supposed to be sand. That's all right. We'll figure it out. All right. Get our combat dress on, because after all of what is said and done, I've learned my lessons. So these are the lessons learned and the applications thereby doing stuff right versus doing stuff when I die. Let's see if we can gain some repair status. Okay. Alright, so I'm gonna have to bring another axe with me. Yeah, might as well bring that axe, because I should kill the axes that don't have any durability left. Alright, so those 3 axes should do me well. Alright, so why make a fuss about critical thinking? You know, can't we just go with the flow? Live our cozy cave lives? And be content with the shadows we see? I mean, thinking hard can be uncomfortable, right? And that's not a joke. I mean, that's not a slight. It takes a little bit. I mean, thinking hard can be uncomfortable itself, right? Still, it's much easier to accept what we're told. Follow the crowd and stick to our familiar beliefs. But there's one thing. When we do that, we're basically playing life on easy mode and missing out on the epic loot, which could be the truth, the insights, and the growth that comes from questioning and understanding. Critical thinking matters because it's what allows us to pierce through the illusions and get to the epic loop, which is reality. Let's go back to Plato's cave just for a second. The reason that allegory still resonates after 2,000 years plus is that it nails the fundamental fact. Truth is often hidden behind layers of illusion, and finding it takes effort and openness to new ideas. And that is as simple as it gets. The cave prisoners who saw that only shadows were living in ignorance, right? And blissful ignorance at that. They had no idea there was a fuller reality. They took one curious, brave soul to break free and discover the truth. That's why critical thinking matters. Without it, we remain prisoners of whatever environment or information bubble we're born into. With it, we can step out and see a larger picture. Let's say, one example is germs. Can't see them. However, they were considered evil demons because you can't see them, right? We didn't know how to fight them. We accept them as demons. Then we figured out, these sicknesses, illnesses aren't manifesting or manifested from demons. They're actually created by these little creatures, right? Think about modern examples. Our world is flooded with information. You have news, social media, advertisements, you name it. It's like an endless cave wall of shadows being cast by who knows what agendas. Right? You can navigate. There we go. Ever scrolled through your feed and felt like you're seeing only one side of the story? Algorithms might be chaining you to a particular spot on the wall, showing you the same kind of, quote, shadows over and over. In Plato's terms, many of us live in echo chambers now, digital caves of our own making where our existing beliefs constantly get reinforced. News outlets and political groups can frame stories in ways to manipulate our perception, just like those puppeteers in the cave casting selective shadows. Social norms and cultural narratives can also chain us. For example, stereotypes or inherited prejudices can limit how we see others until we question them, right? Without critical thinking, we're vulnerable to accepting all of these shadows as full truth. We might never realize there's a sunlit world of complexity behind the simplistic narratives. That's a big one. Take misinformation as a concrete case. We're going to call it misinformation for the sake of the conversation. I don't believe there's misinformation. I think there's omission of truths, which is basically a lie. Misinformation is just a kind of way of saying you're being lied to. But that's another conversation. We've all seen fake news stories shared as if they were true, right? Or a wild rumor on Facebook that might convince thousands of something that just isn't real. Why do people fall? Well, often because it confirms what they already suspect or want to believe. Confirmation bias, right? So they don't bother to question. Critical thinking acts like a shield. Makes you pause and ask, hold on, who cast that shadow? Where is this information coming from? What's the evidence? As Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Pointed out during his college year, quote, we are prone to let our mental life become invaded by legions of half-truths, prejudices, and propaganda. Education must enable one to sift and weigh evidence, to discern the true from the false, the real from the unreal, and the facts from the fiction, unquote. In other words, one of the main purposes of learning, and I'd say life experience as well, is to arm ourselves against the BS out there by developing a keen eye for the truth. Totally blind fighting these things. That's alright though, because I'm used to swinging the sword. Oh, in this case, the axe. It has taken me forever to understand that if you're facing the enemy, you're good to go. If you're not facing the enemy, not so much. Let me sort through this and we'll get back to the conversation because this is an important part of the conversation. Ah, crap. I think I saw. There it is. Oh, there we go. Oh, I can't cut down trees with that anymore. Not liking that, but whatever. Dr. King knew that without this skill, people could be led astray by slick rhetoric or misleading appearances. History, unfortunately, offers plenty of examples of that. Let's drop in on a few historical scenes in the 17th century, and we'll get a feeling for this. Galileo Galilei is peering through his telescope, discovering that Jupiter has moons and that Venus goes through phases. These observations support the radical idea that the Earth goes around the Sun, not the other way around. He publishes his evidence, thinking, surely people will see the truth now. Well, authorities at the time, the Church in particular, basically said, nope, keep those shadows on the wall. Galileo was tried and condemned by the Inquisition for teaching heresy. Now, we can go into a couple more historical truths about that era, but let's just keep it for our conversation that was the a very quick summation of the how that interaction actually occurred. He was effectively told back to go back into the cave and stop pointing at the sun. Quite literally, the actual sun in this case. It took many years and more critical thinkers after Galileo for society to finally accept the heliocentric reality. Nowadays, we see Galileo as a hero of critical thinking, someone who trusted evidence over established doctrine. But this story shows how powerful interests will often resist truth to maintain control, and how only determined, evidence-based reasoning can eventually break those chains. Another scene, let's go to the 5th century BC, ancient India. The Buddha is speaking to a group called the Kalamas, who are confused by the many teachers and doctrines they've encountered. His advice, don't just believe something because a lot of people repeat it or because it's tradition. Sorry. Or even because Buddha says so. He goes, even before I say so, right? So, quote, do not believe in anything simply because you have heard it. Do not believe in anything merely on the authority of your teachers, but after observation and analysis. When you find that anything agrees with reason and is conducive to the good of one and all, then accept it and live up to it. And I've been so enamored by the conversation. And if you have any questions or comments in the chat or in the comment section, let me know. I'll stop and we'll talk about it. So, and look at Buddha's comment, right? I mean, talk about critical thinking manifesto, right? Over 2,500 years ago, the Buddha straight up told people to use their own reasoning and experience to test the truth, not follow blindly. This emphasis on personal verification and skepticism toward authority is echoed in so many cultures. It's basically the opposite of, quote, just stay in the cave mentality. It's huge, right? We see similar wisdom in the Chinese culture. There is a popular Chinese proverb about a frog in a well. This frog lives its whole life in a tiny well, and it's convinced it knows everything about the world because it can see the sky, but only a small patch right above the well. One day, a sea turtle comes along and invites the frog to see the vast ocean. The frog is astonished. It had no idea such immensity existed. Let me go to the next tree. The moral: don't be the frog that thinks the little well is all there is. In other words, beware of the narrow perspective. Critical thinking helps us realize when we're in the well or the cave of limited knowledge and prompts us to climb out and explore a broader view. Without that realization, we might remain blissfully ignorant, but also severely limited, like a gamer who never leaves the starting zone and wonders why they never find better gear. Or even worse, they can't level up efficiently or fast. I say even worse, but I've been there. Even outside the realm of philosophers and proverbs, critical thinking has very practical life and death importance. Consider healthcare. If doctors didn't think critically, they'd still be using medieval practices like bloodletting for every illness. Or it was the willingness to question old assumptions and test new hypotheses that advanced medicine. Or consider our personal safety. Scams and hoaxes prey on people who don't question things. If someone emails you saying you've won $1 million and you need to just send your bank info, a critically thinking mind will yell, "This has to be too good to be true. What's really going on?" and save you from a bad outcome. Entire communities rely on critical thinking to function. Democracy, for example, only works if voters think critically about the candidates' claims and policies, rather than being swayed by mere slogans or fear-mongering. As citizens, if we fail to scrutinize what leaders and media tell us, we could end up supporting wars or laws that are against our own interests or values, simply because we stayed in the cave of one-sided propaganda. Well, in the gaming, the stakes aren't life and death. At least, not literally. They're virtually life and death. Ah, there we go. I was waiting for that clank. And I got no lifetime or durability, so we go back. There we go. In the game, but critical thinking still makes a huge difference, right? So let's talk MMOs for a second. In World of Warcraft, especially back in the day, there were tons of players spreading myths. I remember hearing crazy rumors like, if you don't do a certain dance in front of the waterfall in the Elwyn Forest at midnight, a legendary sword will drop from the sky. Total nonsense, of course. Basically, the WoW equivalent of Shadows on the Cave in the wall, right? Or the cave wall. Players who didn't think critically might have wasted hours on such wild goose chases. Meanwhile, more critical players would hop on forums, gather evidence. Has anyone actually gotten the sword? And quickly debunk the myth. In competitive games, you see critical thinking on how top players analyze strategies. They don't just accept, quote, this is meta because everyone says so. They test, iterate, and sometimes discover a new tactic that upends the meta. Critical thinking is why speedrunners find bizarre shortcuts. They question the assumed limitations of the game. It's also why EVE Online corporations do background checks on new members. More on the latter. Because a little skepticism can save you from massive betrayal. Yes, very much so. All right. And speaking of betrayal in EVE Online, a notoriously complex sandbox MMORPG, often cited for its realism and player-driven intrigue. So many stories, so little time. Anyway, that game provides a cautionary tale on why you should always keep your critical thinking sharp. In one infamous incident, a player organization called the Guiding Hand Social Club spent 10 months infiltrating a rival court from the inside, gaining their trust and setting up a heist. When the trap was sprung, they stole assets worth 30 billion ISK, which is the in-game currency, which at the time equated to about $16,500 in real money, and even assassinated the CEO's character for a contract. Well, we say assassinated the CEO, but that game is you're an immoral, so they didn't exactly assassinate him. They killed him and got the contract for sure. Yay! That's what I was hoping for. Gotta love skinning going up. That is why you skin all the time. Don't question me on that. I hear something in the background. You might not hear it on the stream, but there's I'm near what are they? They're not Inquisitors. They're Justicars. They might be Inquisitors. I can't remember now. I just killed them. They're evil. Where were we? So it was the ultimate long con, honestly. But think about that. A game that gives you the opportunity to do such things. It's crazy. Many of the victims likely never saw it coming. They trusted blindly. Right? The lesson in EVE, as in life, uncritical trust can be granted, or can be the greatest enemy of truth and your bank account. If something doesn't feel right or is too good to be true, the critical mind might sniff it out before you get duped. Let me starting to use some inventory slots. There we go. All of these examples point to a simple fact. Critical thinking is the, quote, steel armor for your mind. It protects you from deception, from mistakes, from being stuck in ignorance. And I am going to say one thing about that because I don't like what I wrote there. It doesn't protect you from mistakes. It minimizes the mistakes, right? Failure is okay. Failure without critical thinking should not be okay. So without it, we're definitely easy prey to scams, manipulation, error, and stagnation. With it, we become freer, more autonomous, and frankly, more interesting individuals. We can navigate the world's complexity with eyes open, making better decisions, and forming authentic beliefs. The ancient Egyptians had a concept of ma'at, which meant truth, balance, and order. Pharaohs were actually expected to uphold ma'at. Kind of like European kings and even leaders are meant to uphold honor, courage, commitment, that type of thing, right? Duty to God, etc. And why is that? Well, because it was felt that that adherence, effectively seeking truth and justice, kept the world from falling into chaos. In a way, each of us needs to uphold truth and order in our own little universe. Critical thinking is how we do that on a daily basis. It brings order to the chaos of claims and counterclaims. Let's not forget, critical thinking also fuels progress and creativity. Every great scientific discovery... Ah, crap. Somebody's coming up to me. Clueless Freya, huh? Interesting. I know a Freya. I don't know a clueless Freya. You can't PvP in this area, so I wasn't too worried. Anyway. The Wright brothers questioned the fact that humans can't fly, but if you hadn't heard, Grace Hopper, a pioneer of computer programming, questioned why programs had to be written in machine code and helped develop higher level languages. In games, critical feedback analysis from players led developers to improve mechanics or to fix exploits. Even on a personal growth level, when you reflect on your own actions, why did I react that way? Could I have handled it better? You're essentially using critical thinking to refine yourself. It's how you break out of old habits and evolve. It's also how you look at your new beliefs or values, how you change those beliefs and values. Well, to sum up this section, let's say critical thinking matters because reality matters. Living in a delusion might feel comfortable for a while. Ignorance is bliss, as they say. But ultimately, it keeps us limited. And can lead to painful wake-up calls. Like waking up in a PvP zone without your gear because you trusted the wrong person, or realizing too late that the news stories you shared were fake. On the flip side, using our critical faculties can be challenging at first. It's like those first moments in the bright sun outside the cave where it hurts your eyes, right? But it enables us to see much more and make decisions with clearer vision. It's the difference between stumbling in the dark and walking in the light. You will make mistakes. That's okay. It's part of learning. Without those mistakes, you're not going to learn. One more voice from history, and I want to drive it home with this because it's from Albert Einstein. I believe one of the greatest minds once said, quote, "Unthinking respect for authority is the greatest enemy of truth." It is amazingly true. I cannot agree with that more. It's funny that you can clear cut an entire area of the forest in this game. Luckily, it grows back really quick. I think that's the Mike Pop quote if I ever heard one. It reminds us that just accepting what authorities, be it governments, media, even famous streamers or guild leaders, say without question is a sure way to stray from the truth. Make sure. Okay. I was making sure there's no heartwood that dropped. There we go. In our own lives, we encounter plenty of, we'll say, authorities, quote unquote, right? Sometimes well-intentioned and sometimes not, who claim to know what's best. Critical thinking gives us the power to evaluate those claims and decide for ourselves. What was the old adage? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. All right, now we're hopefully on the same page about critical thinking. It's like a superpower for real life. And it's a darn useful skill in games and everything else. The next logical question is, how do we develop this superpower? Is it something you're just born with? Can you train it? Train your brain to be better critical thinker? Hint, you can train it, just like you can train any other skill from sword fighting to coding. There we go. That should be 50 across the board. And we'll go back to my home. Drop this off and probably come back out. Let's explore some practical ways to hone our critical thinking skills. Basically, how to venture out of our personal caves and reliably find the steel of our truth out in the world. So how do you develop critical thinking? By now, you're probably thinking, all right, I'm sold. Critical thinking is important, but how do I actually do it? What is it? What does being a critical thinker look like in practice? That's a great question, because critical thinking isn't just a switch you flip on or a trait. You either have it or you don't. It's more like a set of habits and skills that you can cultivate over time. Wow, made it back to my thing really fast. I didn't think I'd make it here this fast. Let me, I have to look at my notes for the next section because it's a really important section. However, and if you're wondering how I'm doing this, I'm hitting the G button, which is to transfer without equipping. Left click can also be used, but it also is one where you transfer, and if you are, if it is equipable, it will equip it instead of transferring it. So just FYI there, as you're seeing me do this quickly. This is important for me for fletching, which I got to get back to. I got to start harvesting my wax. My beeswax. Fletching is one of the hardest ones to get. All right. So by now, so you got to think of it as leveling up as a character in a game. You gain experience, you practice, you may fail a few challenges, and then learn from them. And then gradually, your critical thinking skill tree fills with awesome perks, right? The good news is that humans have been working on this skill tree for ages, and so there's a lot of wisdom on how we do it. We're gonna break down some of the key techniques and the mindsets that can help you. Ooh, is that a hard one? I'll take some. I will take it. We'll go over here first. Okay. Let me see where I am at. All right, so we're going to break down some of the key techniques and mindsets that can help you. All right, some come from ancient sages, some from modern science, and some from everyday practical experience, including gaming. All right, so let's get into it. So the first thing is cultivate curiosity. Ask questions, and a lot of them. Critical thinking often begins with a simple yet powerful act, asking questions. Ever notice kids incessantly ask why? About everything. It comes to them naturally. They're naturally curious and haven't been trained to accept answers. As adults, we need to reclaim some of that curiosity. When you encounter a statement or situation, ask questions about it. As I'm trying to navigate tree to tree, and I'm getting lost in my notes. So this is awesome. So ask questions like, who is saying this? What exactly are they saying? Why do they claim it's true? What is the evidence? How does it connect to what else I know? By asking such questions, you break free from taking things at face value. Socrates made this an art. He kept probing people with questions until contradictions in their thinking surfaced. You don't have to be as annoying as Socrates, which legends say eventually got him killed, by the way. But you should be your own Socrates. Never be afraid to say, hold on, I need to understand this better. Or, why do we think this is true? When somebody gives you an explanation, try the toddler tactic. Ask why or how and see if they can go a layer deeper. If not, they might be shaky. There might be some shaky assumptions there, right? They might be not providing, or they might not know a lot about this subject, right? In gaming terms, this is like when you're given a quest in an RPG. Instead of just doing it blindly, read the quest text and think, what's really going on here? Let's wait for them to attack again. There we go. Yep. Might as well drop all these while I'm taking the opportunity to do this. Wow, there's a lot of stuff I can drop. All this for, I'm putting these down here so I don't have to worry about dropping stuff within those. Okay. Now that I got those out of the way, I can now concentrate on the trees for a little bit. Okay. Maybe you've played games where you've paid attention and questioned NPCs. You discovered hidden plot twists or side quests. Life is similar. Sometimes things aren't what they seem at first glance. A critical thinker approaches new information like a detective on a mystery quest, rather than a grunt following orders. One game that you should absolutely read the text on, Baldur's Gate 3. They did such a great job on that. So you're cultivating curiosity. Well, what's the next step? Big one. Embrace humility. Acknowledge what you don't know. A big obstacle to critical thinking is our ego. It's hard to question things if deep down we think we already have it figured out. If we already know the answer, why do we have to critically think it? That's why intellectual humility is so important. Confucius put it beautifully. Quote, real knowledge is to know the extent of one's ignorance. In plainer words, knowing what you don't know is a form of wisdom. Make sense? If you start by admitting I might not have all the facts or I could be wrong, then you open yourself up to learning and discovery. On the flip side, if you assume you're always right, or the first thing you hear is correct, you'll be reluctant to question. Critical thinking development thus involves being a bit or having a bit of inner mantra. I might be wrong, and that's okay. In fact, it's good, because it means I can improve my understanding. It's like in a strategy game. The players know the players who improve are the ones who review their defeats and say, all right, I clearly don't know the enemy's tactics well enough. What can I learn? The ones who stagnate are those who blame everything else. The game is rigged. My teammates suck, blah, 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 and never examine their own knowledge gaps. I know a few of you know people in that house. For sure. Oh, 7. A great example of intellectual humility is paying off the scientist Ibn al-Haytham from the Islamic Golden Age around 1000 AD. He basically pioneered the scientific method. He wrote that a true seeker of truth should not simply trust what the ancients said, but rather suspect his own assumptions as he performs his critical examination to avoid falling into prejudice or leniency, unquote. Pretty wise words. He even said one must, quote, make himself an enemy of all that he reads. A little exaggerated, but I get the point. Not literally hate it, but the approach is to approach it critically. Also, doubt oneself to test whether one's thinking is solid. And if you think about it, that's next level humility and rigor. Next question: question the sources and question yourself. If something that you believe turns out to be wrong, a critical thinker doesn't feel ashamed. They feel excited to update their views. It's like uncovering a map of the new zone in an RPG. Sure, you were wrong about what was there, but now you have the real map, and that's awesome. So now we get to the third one. Seek evidence and check the source. This one's huge. We live in the information age, which often is also the misinformation age. Not all information is created equal. Developing critical thinking means training yourself to ask, what's the evidence for this claim? Is the source trustworthy? If someone tells you 90% of the people believe X, or studies show Y, don't accept it until you see the data or at least know where it's coming from. Is that 90% from a reliable survey or just made up? Which studies show Y? Who funded them? Were they rigorous? Do other studies agree? These might sound like tedious questions, but they become second nature once you start. It's like always checking the item stats and the tooltips in the game instead of just trusting chat rumors about the item. If you want the actual numbers and facts, you look at them. Practically, if you read an article online, take a minute to see if the author has credentials or biases, if they cite sources. If a friend shares a claim, maybe do a quick search to see if it's verified elsewhere. In our era, one of the most critical thinking friendly habits is using multiple sources. Don't let one news channel or website be your only window. Peek into different sources, especially ones with different perspectives, and compare. Truth usually emerges from the intersection of credible sources. When evidence is presented, examine its quality. Anecdotes. This one person experienced this, right? Is they're not as solid as data from a large sample. Correlation doesn't prove causation. Just because two things happen together doesn't mean one caused the other. That is, for example, people eat more ice cream in the summer and also get more sunburns in the summer. But ice cream doesn't cause sunburns, right? You have a correlation. You do not have a correlation and a causation. These are the kind of basic logic checks that a critical thinker keeps in their toolkit. They're also common logical fallacies, errors in reasoning, right? And I did a podcast on logical reasoning, and I think I might do another one, honestly, because it's so important to understand when you're reasoning through something and seeing the steps of what is logic and what is not logic, or what is illogical. All right, so where are we? I gotta look at my notes. There are so like logical fallacies or errors in reasoning could be, they're like strong, distorting someone's argument to attack it. Ad hominem is a person attacking instead of attacking the person instead of the argument. A false dilemma is presenting only two options when more exist, and so on. Like I said, I might go into another podcast just on that because it's so important. Spotting these is like spotting the tells of a bluffing opponent in poker. It helps you not to be fooled. It doesn't mean people are wrong. when they don't have more than one source. It just means you should check in on it if they only have one source. And that's okay. They might end up being right, and your critical thinking that you're doing is going to alleviate some of the questions you have in your own mind about the comment, right? Let's see if I can. I did. What got to me? Axes are so slow. I love the game design because they did such a great job with weapon speeds and such things like that. Love it. Absolutely detailed to the game mechanics or to physics. It gives an added layer of realism to the game. Where am I? Oh, here you go. Practically, if you read an article online, take a minute to see if... Oh, sorry, I did that. Where am I? Oh, we're already into the next section. So far we've gone through cultivate curiosity, which is ask questions. Embrace humility, which is acknowledge what you don't know. The third one is seek evidence and check your sources, or check the sources. And the fourth one we're going to go into is analyze assumptions, both others and your own. When we get to the next tree, and I will continue our conversation. There we go. So every argument or belief rests on certain assumptions. Often these are implicit, meaning they're not stated outright. For example, someone might argue we need to implement policy X to improve schools, assuming that policy X will indeed lead to improvement. A critical thinker tries to surface those hidden assumptions. So, what needs to be true for this argument to hold? Then you can scrutinize whether those assumptions are valid. Maybe policy X assumes every school has certain resources, or assumes kids will respond in a specific way. And if those aren't true, well, then the whole argument wobbles. Gotta love the attention to detail in this game. Just as a side note. Okay. Do the same with your own thinking, though. This is a bit tricky because we all have unconscious biases. Assumptions influenced by our upbringing, culture, personal experiences, beliefs, values, etc. But with practice, you can start catching yourself. Let's say you find yourself dismissing an opinion online. You might want to say, why did I so quickly reject that? Am I assuming something about the person or idea that might not be accurate? Well, could it be you have a bias? Maybe the person is from a group you usually disagree with. So you assume that they're wrong without actually any analysis. That's a type of bias called halo horns effect. Once identified, you can challenge your assumption. What if hypothetically, their point has merit? What evidence would I need to be convinced? This kind of self-dialogue is very healthy. It's like debugging your own code, finding where your mental program is an unproven assumption, leading you astray. In team settings like work, guild strategy, etc., voicing assumptions can be immensely helpful. We're assuming the boss is immune to fire damage. Have we actually tested that? Could you save your raid from a failed strategy in World of Warcraft if you bring that up? Similarly, let me do this first. There we go. Now, where was it? All right, so similarly, in an in-work meeting, saying, quote, we're assuming the customers want this feature. Should we confirm that with a survey? You can steer the team to get actual data before investing resources. And the team should be open to this. If they're not, then there's other issues that might be needing addressed in the workplace. So another thing we need to do in critical thinking is we need to embrace diverse perspectives. Basically, they call this two-eyed seeing. One fantastic way to broaden your critical thinking is to deliberately seek out viewpoints different from your own. That not necessarily negative to yours, but different. Or the opposite, I should say. By considering multiple perspectives, you can get a richer picture to avoid the trap of one-dimensional thinking. In indigenous wisdom, there's a concept called two-eye seeing. It means learning to see with one eye, the strengths of indigenous ways of knowing. Excuse me. Let me say that again because I totally miss. It means learning to see with one eye the strengths of indigenous ways of knowing, and with the other eye, the strengths of Western ways of knowing, and using both together. That approach can apply to any disparate viewpoints. Essentially, don't limit yourself to one lens. Use multiple lenses for depth perception. Which makes a lot of sense when you say it in those terms, right? Close one eye and do a depth perception test. It's hard to do, right? For example, if you're trying to understand a complex issue like climate change, you might look at scientific data with one eye and also consider traditional ecological knowledge from indigenous communities the other eye. Each might reveal something about the other misses. So each might reveal something the other misses, And together you will see more fully. In a company, a manager might look at a problem from a financial perspective, an engineer from a technical perspective, and a user from a human perspective. The truth of what the solution is best. The truth of what solution is best may lie in the synthesis of these views. Even in games, multiple perspectives help. Think of a game like EVE Online again. The trader in the market has one view of the game's state. This is an economy. A fleet commander has another: military, strength, and politics. A newbie, ooh, wow. I didn't bring another one. Okay, I guess we leave it. I didn't think I'd go through all three axes. A newbie yet has another. What's confusing or hard for new players? Right? The smartest leaders in EVE are the ones who listen to intel from many sources: spies, scouts, economic reports, to inform the decision. Likewise, you can simulate this in your life. If you're making decisions, say choosing a career or a place to move, gather perspectives, talk to people who have been there, imagine yourself in different scenarios. Consider both short-term and long-term consequences. It's like checking all camera angles before you proceed. Underrated aspects of critical thinking. Oh, I'm sorry. So that ends the number 5, which is embrace diverse perspectives. And then in number 6, you have practice reflection, slow down, and think about thinking. In our fast-paced world, one of the underrated aspects of critical thinking is simply time for reflection. Oh boy, I was hitting X. Where'd the other one go? I don't know where the other one went. Did it go upstairs? It might have went upstairs. Let's check upstairs. I do not see it. Before I drop 2. Might not have them. That's all right. I was trying to hit G and I hit X by accident. That's all right though. Found a really great place to harvest heartwood, which is good to know. Getting a decent amount. I could use grace, but honestly, I don't really need to right now. All right, this is such an important topic. I'm going to take a moment. And we're gonna go upstairs and look at the scenic view while I look at my notes as I'm talking, because it's so important. Critical thinking. I can't state it enough that our society needs to or should be required. The courses of critical thinking. There's the sun. There's somebody's half-built stuff. I was hoping they would actually build something, and they're there for no apparent reason. Oh, well. Anyway. At any rate, our brain needs a bit of breathing room to process information deeply. If you're always reacting instantly, clicking share on that post immediately because it gave you a surge of emotion, or making a life choice on a whim, you're not engaging your critical filters fully. Try to build in pause moments. This could be as formal as journaling about the decisions and why you made them, or as casual as pausing for 10 seconds before responding in an argument to consider what you're about to say. If you're about to say something biased or unfounded. I want to take a moment here and really emphasize pausing is just as important as speaking fast. Why do I say that? Actually, it's more important. If you think about songs, a lot of people, there's a saying, the rests in songs make the music sound better. The rests are just important as the actual frequencies or the music itself. So reflection also means learning from the past. After a project or experience, ask yourself, what went well, what didn't go well, and why didn't it go well? And as a matter of fact, if you go to project management's PMP study guides and PMP, PMI, the Project Management Institute, this is essential for an after project breakdown. Was my initial belief about this correct? If not, where did I go wrong? This, quote, post-game analysis cements your critical thinking In sports or esports, teams review game footage to spot mistakes and cognitive biases. We're overstimulated by the enemy's strength here because we panicked. Similarly, you can reflect on personal incidents. Maybe you got into a debate and later realized you were a bit unfair, or you fell for a logical fallacy. Acknowledge that, and you'll less likely do it in the future. Number 7 is engage in debates and discussions. Let me take a moment before we get into this, as I will take a sip of sponsored spot of Zevia. I just have to call it out because this saved me to get rid of my sugar. It's a zero sugar, 0 calorie soft drink, so I can drink it whenever. 0 calories and 0 sugar. It's made by the stevia plant for sweetening, and then they add a little artificial flavoring, which I can deal with. But other than that, it's just the carbonic acid, I suppose. Okay. So we're engaging in debates and discussion. Number 7. Another practical way to sharpen your critical thinking skills is to actively engage with others in reasoned discussion. Find friends or colleagues who are up for respectful debates on various topics. When you debate, you're forced to articulate your reasoning and also to hear counter arguments. This not only tests your ideas, sometimes you'll realize mid-debate, I never thought of that rebuttal. Good point. But also it also teaches you where others are coming from. It can even be fun, like a mental sparring match. The key is to keep it respectful and about the ideas, not personal. The goal is mutual enlightenment, not winning. Even online, you can do this carefully. If you go onto forums like the Stack Exchange or certain subreddits dedicated to debate, you can present your arguments and get feedback. Just be wary of toxic platforms. A constructive debate is different from an internet flame war. In a good debate, everyone might walk away with a better understanding, even if they don't agree. You'll get better at forming coherent arguments and spotting weak logic in your opponent's stance or your own. So 8, let's apply critical thinking in small daily ways, or is critical thinking every day, but don't go big, right? Like any skill, practice is the key. If you don't have to wait for a huge life decision, or I should say, you don't have to wait for a huge life decision or a crisis to flex your critical thinking. Do it with everyday things. When you read a news article in the morning, mentally fact check it or compare with another source later. When you watch a YouTube video making some claim like a health tip or a historical fact, take a moment afterward to verify if it's accurate. When gossip or a chain message reaches you, quote, chocolate cures cancer, pass it on. Be the skeptic who checks Snopes.com or something, right? Or a credible source before moving forward. These small habits can keep your critical mind engaged and sharp. In conversation, listen actively and ask clarifying questions. If a friend says something like, I heard this investment is a surefire win, you can ask gently, oh, where'd you hear that? What makes it surefire? What makes it a sure win? Not only might you help your friend think twice, you're also training yourself not to absorb claims without scrutiny. Another daily way, make predictions and then check them. For instance, you think a certain strategy at work will succeed. Note your reasoning and prediction. Then later, see if it holds true. If it didn't, analyze why. This scientific approach to your own beliefs, hypothesis, test, and revise, will continuously refine your thinking process. 9. Learn about cognitive biases. Our brains are as wonderful as they are, have some built-in shortcuts and biases that can trip up critical thinking. Over the years, psychologists have identified many common biases. There's confirmation bias, which is tending to seek and favor information that confirms our pre-existing beliefs. We have availability heuristic, which is overestimating the importance of information that comes to mind easily, like flying is safe. There's anchoring, or being overly influenced by the first piece of information encountered. And there's usually a pit trap after the second door. You tread carefully. Likewise, if you know, quote, I have a tendency to only read news that aligns with my opinions, I should consciously check out other perspectives on it. You guard against confirmation bias. There are great resources online. Let me change up the view for everybody. That will become a field, hopefully soon. There we go. There are great resources online. Cognitive biases, even fun illustrated guides. Maybe treat it like a monster manual for your mind. Every now and then, read about bias and reflect. Have I fallen for this before? How might I counteract it? For example, to counter confirmation bias, you can deliberately read sources that disagree with you or play devil's advocate against your own ideas. To counter the halo effect, where if you like one quality of a person, you assume everything about them is great, you can remind yourself that people can have bad ideas and vice versa. Each bias has an antidote once recognized. Another aspect to this halo effect is it's kind of like an opposite. Just because a philosopher has some bad things about them doesn't mean their philosophy as a whole is bad. Use thought experiments and analogies. This is number 10. When trying to evaluate an idea, it sometimes helps to put a different context or run hypothetical scenarios. This is a trick philosophers use a lot. For instance, if you're debating a moral issue, you might use a thought experiment. If I change this factor, would my stance be the same? This can reveal underlying principles or inconsistencies. In more practical terms, if someone says, quote, policy X will never work, unquote, you could ask, quote, what if we tried it in a small town as a pilot program? What do we predict would happen? By visualizing the scenario, you might see some factors you hadn't considered. Analogies can also aid thinking. Let's say you're struggling to understand a complex economic theory. If you can compare it to something familiar, like an in-game economy, EVE Online, or WoW's auction house, World of Warcraft's auction house, that analogy could clarify what factors are at play. Economists often do this themselves. They use simplified models or stories to represent the real world. Just be cautious. Analogies are tools for understanding, but the real test still needs to be real evidence. Don't fall into the trap of thinking something must be true because it's like the other thing. Use the analogy to help reason, then check it against reality. 11 is a hands-on problem solving. Engage in activities that inherently require critical thinking. Puzzle solving is a fun way. Crosswords, strategy games like chess, even certain video games like Portal or The Witness that are basically critical thinking puzzles in visual form. These hobbies keep your mind sharp and accustomed to logical reasoning. If you're into programming, write code or solve coding challenges. Debugging code is an exercise in critical analysis. I mean, what is causing the bug? What assumptions in my code are wrong? If you prefer group activities, escape rooms are fantastic for team critical thinking under pressure. In MMO context, think of the complex raid encounters. The raid group that analyzes what's happening. Why did we die at 50% boss health? Maybe there's a mechanic we missed. Let's check the combat log to see if we're standing in those runes was bad. This will progress versus the group that just blames the healer or tank and repeats without changing or changes. Treat challenges as learning opportunities. The more you practice a thoughtful approach in various domains, the more it becomes your default mode. And of course, here's my bedroom. Before we get to number 12, I thought I'd show you my bedroom. I got to use this critical thinking when I'm fighting the bear. They changed the bear's actions, so it's not as easy to kill anymore. So I got to figure out how I'm going to kill the bear. It'll be fun. Oh, still have that. We'll get to 12 here in a second, guys. I didn't think standing there is going to be as fun as actually going places. Maybe what I'll do is I'll go let me take you through the home valley. We got some people who are just the master builders. I think they're awesome. Yeah, we sell weapons, so that's good. This guy's, oh, he really keyed? I wanted them to attack. Really? I guess my axe didn't do what it wanted to do. That's alright. This is just a master class at I think he's more a blacksmith / weapon and armor smith, because he just is incredible. I know him. I hadn't talked to him in a while, but I do know him. So 12 is, oh, what a segue. 12 is actually mentors and role models. Sometimes it helps to learn by example. Do you know somebody who seems really good at cutting through the nonsense and getting to the heart of matters? Observe how they think, or even ask them about their thought process. I know, it sounds silly, but do it. They might have habits worth emulating. Historically, we have plenty of role models. Socrates, the Buddha, Galileo, Einstein, etc. Reading bibliographies or anecdotes about great thinkers can be inspiring and also informative about how they approach problems. For instance, reading about Marie Curie painstakingly tested hypothesis after hypothesis in her discovery of radium can instill patience and rigor. Or learning how Darwin collected massive amounts of evidence over the years supporting his theory of evolution shows the value of thoroughness and open-minded observation. Not saying you need to do this for years of research on everything. So please don't take years to decide what smartphone to buy. And if you did, it'd probably not be the smartphone anymore to buy. But the underlying virtues, patience, evidence gathering, right? Openness to unexpected results are applicable in everyday critical thinking. To recap, the strategy for developing critical thinking. We want to stay curious and question. We want to be humble about what you know, demand evidence, scrutinize assumptions, welcome multiple perspectives, reflect on your own thinking, practice in low stakes settings, and learn about those mental traps our brains set for us. It's a lot, I know, but you don't have to do it all at once. Each small habit you build, like pausing before believing or forwarding something, adds up. Each time, oh, really? God, I hate these things. I'll keep it. Anyway. Each small habit you build, each time you catch yourself saying, I don't know, let me find out, that's a victory for critical thinking. And remember, developing critical thinking is a journey. Oh, I know what I did. We're just gonna block at this point. That's okay. We don't need to run. We're talking. We don't need to run. Somebody's dying over there. So remember, critical thinking, like anything, like any learning, it's a journey, not a destination. Even the best of us will sometimes be fooled or will realize in hindsight, oops, I fell for the bias there. Or I made a bad call because I rushed. Is that for me? It is not. If you made a bad call because you were rushed, right? That's normal. The idea is to steadily reduce those instances and increase the times you do get it right, where you do uncover the truth or make decisions, good decisions, thanks to analyzing it well. One more analogy. Think of critical thinking like sharpening a sword. You don't just sharpen it once and then forget about it. After each battle, each intellectual challenge, you might need to hone it again. But a well-forged, well-kept sword will serve you reliably. Just as the mind trained in critical thinking will serve you and, frankly, everyone around you. By cutting through the confusion and the falsehood. All right, we've geared up for the how of critical thinking. Now let's venture into the real and the virtual world applications. How does critical thinking play out in concrete scenarios? How can it be your ace in the hole at work, in school, in your personal, or when you're running your guild's next big raid? Let's explore some applications and examples that show critical thinking in action. By this point, we all know critical thinking. Actually, you know what? We are at an hour and 50 minutes. I might take this part and do it tomorrow. Let me do that. We'll do applications in critical thinking tomorrow because we are going over a ton of material. And I want you to kind of absorb a little bit of the material at a time. What I don't want you to do is come to my channel, and if you, like I said, if you come to my channel and if you're live, ask the questions, interrupt me, come into the chat. That's fine by me. That's really what the live show is for. If I didn't want that live show to progress the way, if I didn't want the interaction, I would just record this, right? And I would put up little facts on the screen as I'm playing in the background. You know, maybe some emojis or some kind of formatting. However, the live show is for that very thing, the interaction. And I don't have all the answers. One of the things that we'll go into depth tomorrow about is all this foundation that I set tonight. We'll find out what you can do with what tools you can use and resources you can levy in order to create or use to critically think in a way that you feel comfortable and you have more confidence in whichever topic that you're debating or discussing with somebody. Maybe it's just a belief, a fundamental belief. You're like, you know what? I believed this my entire life. Well, why? Maybe it's not somebody who. Maybe it's not somebody who challenges your ideas, but maybe it's you challenging your own ideas. Maybe this episode starts you down that path of questioning everything about your life. Why am I in the job I am? Am I comfortable in the job? Do I like the job? Right? These are all questions that you can ask yourself. I'm not saying it's good or bad or indifferent, right? That's not the point of tonight's show. The point of tonight's show is ask the questions. If you don't like the answer, then you can change the answer. You are the master of your own destiny. You have the ability to walk the path you desire. And that's the whole show. Philosophy in general is used to better ourselves. Ancient philosophy tells us a lot of information. Why can't we use it in modern times? Some say, oh, it's outdated. No, it's not. Life is not outdated. Life is life. The tools you have will change. I.e., you had no paper, then you had papyrus, then you had paper or stone, intermingled in there to write things down. Then you had paper, then you had the printing press. Now you can write volumes of things for mass distribution. Then, of course, you had typewriters, where it was a step up from the printing press. Then you had automated typewriters, then auto pens. Then you had computers and printers. And then you had massive printers, where you can create thousands or tens of thousands of the same book in a month and put them on shelves around the country. Then you had the computer and the internet, where people would be able to disseminate information widely and quickly. And I wouldn't say it now more than ever you need critical thinking. I'd say you needed critical thinking through that entire evolution of information. There is no reason not to have critical thinking, and there's no need or necessity to prioritize one era over another. Just because something was said in 2 AD is the same as something being said in 2025 AD on X, right? Or Snapchat. Or insert your favorite social media, Pinterest, whatever, right? This is why critical thinking is so important for everybody at all times. It is very important that we always measure ourselves to ourselves and where we want to go. Don't measure yourself on anybody else. That's not what this channel is about. This channel is essentially for the betterment of yourself. The best version of yourself. I can't remember the YouTuber who actually came up with that, but they were brilliant. They were a trainer, and it was a long time ago. I want to say 2006, 2007-ish, and they had their own gym. I think it was in Jersey, but I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. He was brilliant. He said his channel was for the betterment of, he wanted you to lift weights for yourself, to provide or make the best version of yourself. And I think mentally is the same as physically, right? Or both, right? Really, because we can go into the physical and mental. Being healthy at the same time is the pinnacle of being enlightened. But we can get into that, and then maybe I'll even make an entire podcast based off of the physical as well, and what that can do for the mental. Maybe there's ancient philosophy that actually points to being physically fit and mentally fit, goes with that, or helps. The physical fitness helps with the mental fitness. But anyway, we'll get into the applications of critical thinking tomorrow. Tomorrow night, 8 Central, I will figure out something. Until then, check out my channel. YouTube channel has a music channel. I am working on a music video right now called Deadlines and Broken Clocks. I finished it once and I was like, I don't like the video at all. I love the song. It doesn't fit. So I'm being a little artsy on this. So I need to stop being artsy. And then Gen 4 Runway came out and I'm like, man, I gotta do some of these videos in Gen 4, see what happens on Runway. And I have Cling 1.6. I have free pick. So I'm very much into the Suno, and AI, the AI tools that can help me tell a story. I'm actually crafting a story on the Allegory of the Cave because I think this critical thinking is so important that I'm hoping I can craft a short story based off of the Allegory of the Cave and put that on an AI video and see how well I can do that. It'll probably be only about 5 minutes at first, but I'll try and see what it does. And this is crafting to make mistakes. It's okay if I make mistakes the first time, but I'd like to get better at what storytelling and information dissemination. And of course, because we're doing critical thinking, I don't expect you to absolutely accept everything I say. So don't. And let's have a discussion. Let's have a conversation. I'll be on X. I'll be on LinkedIn as well. There's a lot of articles on LinkedIn that I do for leadership and in technology and such things like that. So please, if you see me on LinkedIn, give me a DM on X, DM on YouTube. I'll be happy to take your information. And, let's have those intellectual discussions and see if we can help each other grow. Well, with all that said, how about we subscribe, and hit that notification bell. What am I missing? Share the show with your friends. And until tomorrow night, have a good day, have a good night, and be safe, everyone.
With every step, a lesson learned. From fire's heat to the fields I've turned, the blade and bow, the forge and flame. I sharpen my skills, I play the game. Each day brings a challenge I must face. I train my hands with careful grace. From alchemy's art to the hunter's way, I'll find the strength to seize the day. I carve my path, I walk the line, in the shadow of the ancient sign. Through trial and toil I'll find my way, learning more with each passing day. The skill of survival, the will to thrive. ready to fight, to learn to dance. For every strike and every fall, I'm building my strength, I'm standing tall. In the heart of the wild and the calm of the night, I gather my skills, I'm ready to fight. From the herbs I find to the iron I mold, each lesson learned is a story told. The stars above, they guide my hand as I hone my craft. I take my stand in the quiet woods, in the mountains chill. I push myself, I shape my will with each new tool and every lore. I'm stronger now than I was before. I carve my path, I walk the line in the shadow of the ancient sign. Through trial and toil, I'll find my way, learning more with each passing day. The skill of survival, the will to thrive, in a world where the strong survive. I face the night, I'll take the chance. I'm ready to fight, to learn to dance. For every strike and every fall, I'm building my strength, I'm standing tall. In the heart of the wild and the calm of the night, I gather my skills, I'm ready to fight. The road is long, but I won't turn back. The lessons I learned keep me on track. With each new skill, the stronger I grow. In the face of the storm, I let my courage show. I've tasted defeat, I felt the sting, but I rise again with each new spring. For knowledge is power, and wisdom the key. I'm forging my path, I'm breaking free. The skill of survival, the will to thrive, in a world where the strong survive. I'll face the night, I'll take the chance. I'm ready to fight, to learn to dance. For every strike and every fall, I'm building my strength, I'm standing tall. In the heart of the wild and the calm of the night, I gather my skills, I'm ready to fight.